How to prepare an apartment for sale in New York City. We will demystify this topic in the following video. I'm Nick at Hauseit. We are the largest for sale by owner and buyer agent commission rebate company based here in New York City, established in 2014. Visit our website, hauseit.com, to learn more about ways to save money when buying and selling real estate in New York City. So, how does one prepare an apartment for sale in New York City? Well, the first and most important step is to declutter your home and remove unnecessary furniture. Doing so will allow you to gauge the true condition of the property, determine whether or not any touch-ups or repairs are required, and also determine whether or not your current furniture gives your home the most positive possible impression in the eyes of potential purchasers. While we don't generally suggest any form of gut renovation prior to selling a home, we do suggest that you consider making any necessary touch-ups to maximize the appeal of the space and to repair and restore any obvious eyesores. One example in particular is in the bathroom. Generally speaking, the caulking around a bathtub and a shower, as well as the grout, tends to deteriorate over time. So even if you renovated your place after you purchased it, you probably still will need to touch this up. The grout and the caulking are obvious eyesores, very easy to notice when they're discolored, missing, or cracked. And the good news is that making a repair like this is fairly inexpensive. There are plenty of very, very competent handy people out there, and also perhaps even a building super who could help you with this kind of work. Another obvious touch-up to make when preparing your home for sale is to repaint and repair any walls that are in areas of major sightlines. For example, as you enter an apartment, it is common that the hallways may be scuffed. Jackets, keys, all of these things over time may have deteriorated the entry point of the apartment. And this is the first thing that buyers will see. So if you have any cracks, holes in your walls, it's a good idea to have a contractor come by, put some compound or easy sand, do some minor sanding, and of course repaint these particular sections. It may even be possible for you to spot clean affected areas of walls without having to undergo a full repaint. How easy this is to do really depends on the type of paint. If you have a full gloss or other type of glossy paint, it is fairly straightforward for you to actually spot clean with a towel and some water or perhaps an alcohol-based cleaner, being that the actual paint itself does have some washable component to it. If your apartment, on the other hand, is painted with a flat paint, you'll probably need to repaint any sections that need to be restored. However, because it's flat paint, you can actually usually just touch up the affected area without it becoming noticeable that you've only touched up part of a wall. This would not apply, however, if you've done the painting more than a few years ago, in which case you'd probably have to repaint an entire section. It's also a very good idea to clean windows, particularly if your apartment has an amazing view or the view itself is a core value proposition of the property you're selling. Once you've decluttered and made any necessary touch-ups, the next decision is whether or not to professionally stage your home. This is particularly important if in certain rooms of your apartment there may be the perception that the room is small. For example, if your apartment has a fairly small bedroom and you have very sizable end tables, if this gives the perception that the room is small, particularly in a photo, you may want to consider replacing the end tables with something more slender, or maybe even going down a size in the bed, perhaps from a California king to a king, etc. The same goes for the living room. If you have massive couches that are more akin for hanging out and going with a recliner type of lifestyle, while comfortable, these sorts of things do not really help maximize the appeal of your apartment for prospective buyers. So if your furniture is clunky, if your rugs are too big, if your curtains are too noticeable, too thick, all of these things add up, and if you even have one indication or a hunch that your furniture might be off, it's important to retain the services of a professional to provide you with an emotionally neutral and independent opinion as to whether or not the value of your home can be increased by professional staging. Most staging companies will come out free of charge and give you an estimate. You can also talk to your listing agent, as they may have an opinion as to whether or not it would be cost effective and value add for you to stage your property. If you really need to just change one item of furniture, perhaps a couch, you could even consider just buying a couch outright as generally speaking, the cost will be lower than retaining a professional staging company. However, keep in mind that you would then be responsible for disposing of or otherwise removing the sofa once you've sold your home. Now, aside from the condition of the apartment, what other things must a seller do to prepare to list an apartment for sale in New York City? Well, another thing you can do is assemble all of the documentation a purchaser will need to complete buyer due diligence prior to signing a contract. This includes assembling the offering plan of your condo or co-op, the most recent 2 years of financials, the purchase application, the sublet application, the house rules, and any other documentation that might be helpful. For example, if your building has an assessment or if there have been any recent updates communicated to you from management about the building, you'll want to have all of these copies readily available. To go a step further, we actually suggest digitizing these documents and putting them all in a cloud storage folder such as a Dropbox or Google Drive and having this link available. This way, if a buyer or buyer's agent or the purchaser's attorney asks for these documents, you can very efficiently just send them the link and they'll have everything they need. It's important to remember that nothing in New York City real estate is binding until a purchase contract is fully executed. And to the extent that the purchaser cannot sign the contract until you provide this information, doing this prep work in advance can actually increase the likelihood of a deal going through and reduce the chances of a buyer perhaps finding another apartment and moving forward with something else and leaving you hanging. The other step to take when preparing to list your apartment for sale is obviously to think about closing costs as well as a listing agent. Closing costs in New York City for sellers are extremely high and they can be up to 10%. The largest component of this is the traditional New York City broker fee of 6%. Fortunately, there are a number of ways to reduce or fully eliminate this cost, including a 1% full service listing fee offered by many platforms, including the Hauseit platform. There's also a flat fee listing service. Under this model, you can save up to the full 6% if the buyer comes without a broker. So there are many ways to save on this particular component, and it's very important to do your research and figure out what choice will make the most sense for you in terms of saving you the most money and also ensuring that you do not overextend yourself as it relates to the time commitment of selling your place. You also want to feel comfortable with whatever option you choose. For example, if you are very social and you enjoy showing your home, perhaps the flat fee option will be the best for you. You'll have the most control over your sale, you'll enjoy what you're doing, and you can save up to the full 6%. However, if you're very hesitant to commit to doing the showings yourself and negotiating directly with others, then perhaps the for sale by owner or flat fee MLS, RLS type of service isn't for you. And you may want to consider full service, ideally a 1% full service type of option that will help you save money, but also give you that full service experience that you're looking for. The final most important consideration when preparing your home for sale in New York City is to think about pricing. At the end of the day, buyers in New York City simply do not overpay, and there are a number of risks to listing your apartment for sale with an unrealistic price. This risk is particularly acute in a falling market, as if you list your property with a high price, you will continually be undercut by new listings that hit the market with more attractive price points. We encourage you to speak with numerous agents, as most listing agents will provide you with a complimentary valuation of your home so you can come up with a good sample size and determine what a correct number might be. Keep in mind, however, that listing agents do have a natural bias to inflate the value of your home as it relates to the initial price that they quote you. And the reason for this is obvious. They really do want to be hired. And of course, a seller usually doesn't want to hire an agent who comes in with the lowest price. So it's really your responsibility as a seller to really cut through the noise and the nonsense and to figure out the true value of your home. Assuming you've done this and assuming you've prepared your property, you've done touch-ups, you've decluttered, you've staged as necessary, and you utilize the appropriate listing service, you'll have no problem selling your property in New York. We hope you found this video helpful. I'm Nick at Hauseit. Visit our website, hauseit.com, to learn about ways to save money when buying and selling real estate in New York City.